where do you see it happening? Like going all over the country, or sticking to it yearly, a couple times a year, and like what's the vision of you guys?
I think we feel our way through the dark a lot, and thank God there's a lot of light switches along the way. But you know Elena, right? And this actually, for those of you that don't know, we would not be here if it wasn't for Elena, because I think in order to do what we do, we have to be leaders and we have to be visionaries. Because I think when she first had this idea, hey, why don't we see if a bunch of girls want to get together and train together? Everybody was like,
inconceivable.
maybe.
Right.
Yeah. So the history of it was that we did one camp and people showed up. We did a second camp as a test. Is this a fluke or will people actually show up again? And they showed up again. And that was when we decided, hey, let's make this into a business. And since then, I think we've done a lot of soul searching and tried to figure out what makes this camp tick. Because I'm not going to say it would be easy to just bring a bunch of people together and say, hey, let's learn a bunch of technique. But I don't think the technical aspect is why people continue to come back. I think it's the sense of, not that we have terrible technique, but...
Well, there's more. There's so many other questions when there's only, Fairbanks, one girl, like grew up in Edmonton, two girls.
Yeah.
At my club, and then there is a few other girls.
Yeah.
Not only that, but no, at this point as a school owner and a lot, there's a whole different level to it. But to know that they can do that and have the support and ask questions, because I had to go to Hanet. The only reason why my whole team did well at Canada's was Hanet's camp, because I didn't know how to train for it. No one ever showed me. So at Hanet, I'll pay for your private. How do you train for competition? Wrote it all down like a banshee. I go back and it worked, but I didn't know how to. And I didn't know who to ask.
But I think it's sort of like the chicken or the egg, because, so Annette and I started competing against each other. I always shit my pants whenever I had to do that. But we would always have these really insightful conversations after competition. And the one thing that I think is, I'll say wrong with this jiu-jitsu world is that it's not wrong that it's a male-dominated environment, but what is wrong is the perception of, as women who have trained just as hard and put just as many hours and have just as much love and interest for it, that we sit there, I think, we tend to sit there and go, I wonder when someone is going to come ask me to teach, and I wonder when somebody's going to come validate what I do and what I have to contribute. And in Annette's shoes, I've said to her many times, I'm like, listen, because we'll talk about why don't you have the cover of Gracie magazine? Why doesn't anybody talk about all your accomplishments? And I sit there and I say to her, listen, you're in America, sweetie. You better get out there and do it yourself. And really, that's sort of where I think the camp comes from now is nobody's going to ask us to do it, because the majority of the community, frankly, I don't think they care. They think that this is not a market because it's so small. And I think what the beauty of camp has been is that it's a labor of love. We are not millionaires off of it, and we may never be, but what we see is a community that's growing, a community that wants support, and heck, we're one of few that can provide it, and that's one thing that's been really awesome is in the last couple of years, yes, there have been competitor camps that have opened up, but you know what? They haven't taken away from our business, they've actually grown it. And when it's come to developing products and resources. So, for example, I started 13 years ago, you started 12 years ago. When you looked around for jiu-jitsu gis for girls or DVDs or books, there's nothing. At least now, you might find an app, you might find a book, you might find, certain things are starting to come out, but I think the majority of the market still does not believe that this is big enough to actually make anything out of it. So, I have to say it's probably been amongst our own initiative. I think the group of us that work together have a lot of complementary skill sets. So we're able to sort of say, hey, I have an idea, and Val will be like, awesome, let me write a proposal for it, and then she'll be like, I have a contact at blah, 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 so there's a lot of wheels that have to work together, and we just take shots in the dark, and we just rely on our instinct, and part of the reason why we can rely on our gut is because you guys keep coming back for some reason.